we've got Dwayne, and I guess it's Emmer?
Emmer.
Emmer.
You could pronounce it Emer if you want to.
Emer? Okay.
It's okay.
Okay, so we got Dwayne and Cindy Emer here, and they have been riding down from where on your horse?
From Oregon, Oregon.
Where's that
As far north you could go and not be Washington.
at? Okay, so
right in the middle of the
like
state.
towards LeGrand Dale or over on the other side by the Dalles?
We're about 10
mi-
to 15 miles out of Hermiston,
Yeah,
Okay,
which is about 30 to 45 miles
that's
from
Eastern
Pendleton.
Oregon.
Eastern Oregon.
As far north as you could go.
Okay, yeah, I've hunted up there by Dale and around in that place a little bit. But so you rode the horse. You started there,
Started there.
and you guys aren't riding double, so obviously. Cindy,
Well,
Actually, we did.
oh, did you?
It was painful, very painful. I don't recommend painful.
Well, you guys look like you're walking around pretty good, and not too sore.
You're fine as long as you're in the saddle and I'm on the back.
Yeah, that's right.
And it didn't hurt me to sit on the back
That's why
when we were in my
it
So
hurt
who's
me to sit on the
So who
back.
was driving the car?
Hellboy drives. Hellboy's, he has the plan, you
No, the
know.
first day his mom drove.
I was going to
Yeah.
say it's pretty hard to ride a horse and drive a car. All
Well,
at the
when
same
we
time.
started, we were at my house,
Hold
you
on
know.
just a second here.
and so my family was there.
I just keep it on them. They love the hats. There's a lot more
I
comments
locked the
about the
door
hats.
because I didn't want anyone, clients coming in saying,
It's okay.
"What's going on here?" Well,
So we started in Oregon, Oregon. Actually, we trailered to Hermiston the first day.
Umatilla.
Yeah, and rode down 395, the same road they shot Lavoy on.
right, I know right where that's at.
All right, so we came into Umatilla and we started west. Started west
It
from
went
Umatilla.
through Burns.
No, we went through Portland.
Oh,
and then
Portland.
down.
So you came down the Columbia River
Yeah,
and then down.
came down the gorge, which the roads were shut down due to ice, and the only thing moving was my horse.
Okay, see, I would have thought you would have come down. What is that? 97.
No, I wanted to, but the roads were closed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a lot better drive. Number one, there's a lot less traffic, a lot
Yeah.
easier riding. I would imagine.
But we couldn't even get in. We were going to go to John Day,
Right.
Mitchell, Prineville, and
Right.
into Madras,
Okay.
and then down. But the roads just wouldn't let us. Sheriff Palmer and John Day would have been ecstatic if we could get there, but we just couldn't get there.
Yeah. Well, plus it's a lot, like I say, a lot more conducive to what you're doing. But on the flip side of that, there's a lot more people over there in that corridor down through the Willamette Valley.
Right.
And so there's a lot more advertising to be done with your cause.
Yeah, a lot more people that don't know what happened, and we were able to share the whole message of the Hammonds to the whole west side of the state.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Exactly what did happen. I mean, you were talking to me a little while ago, and you're basically going to spend a year in prison for digging a hole.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds pretty outrageous.
It
You can't make that kind of crap up.
It is pretty outrageous. Now, there's men that have murdered people that have less of a sentence than I have for digging a hole.
Now, when you say digging a hole, I mean,
It was a two-man
what were you
foxhole.
actually charged with?
I was charged with deprivation, which meant I lowered the property value of the game refuge.
By digging a hole. How big was the hole?
The hole was 4 foot by 7 foot, 8 foot maybe.
Okay, so we'll clarify that. You weren't actually digging it with a caterpillar.
No, I used an excavator.
Oh, you did
Traco.
use, so you used
Yeah.
an excavator.
Yeah, a
Okay.
330 cat excavator.
Okay, and how deep was the hole?
It was probably 5'8".
Okay, so 4 by 4 by 5'8", and it pretty much ruined Malheur Reserve.
Yep, that's what they claim.
That's what they claim, but you've got to tell them too where on the easement that was in the parking
All right,
lot.
that was next to a parking lot on an abandoned road.
Okay.
You know.
Not any real damage. Did you run into any pipes or any
No,
wires?
no.
or-
The first scoop of dirt I hit old Native American TV cable.
I got
CenturyLink.
So you've actually found some Indian artifacts, some old Budweiser cans. I had to say.
No, no. The government charged me $750,000 for archaeological survey for digging this hole.
Well, they tried to charge you that much, yeah.
Well, it sounds like kind of what they did to the Bundys down there on the Bundy Ranch deal. I mean, they basically trumped up $9,000 worth of grazing right fees and turned it into $2 million by the
Yes.
time they got through with their fines and their fees and,
Yep.
their penalties and all that crap. So
Yeah.
the government has a way of making you a debt slave one way or another.
Right. And so what my lawyer suggested is if I offered the Paiute Indians $10,000, they had
It's sort of
overall
like a restitution
a
thing.
restitution payment of $10,000 that the government couldn't come back after me for the $750,000, which they were trying to get.
So did you do that?
Yeah.
And so you paid them 10 grand?
I need to pay him. I agreed to pay him 10 grand.
It's part of the sentence that was court
Good
ordered.
grief. That is
So the Paiutes
that's
got
outrageous. Good grief.
And if
got
it's not
on.
paid, they will take up to $100 $150 out of his commissary each month to work on restitution.
So when they say pay immediately, that's where it's going to come from, folks. It's
So-
necessary.
You might
so
want to get a fund started or something here.
so I dug a hole. There was no archaeological evidence out of the 17 semi-loads of dirt that they say they sifted through with no artifacts.
But they're saying this was an Indian, a spiritual Indian site of some sort, or
They said it was a burial ground.
it was a burial ground.
Right, there was never any sign of artifacts or any.
Was there any other
Anything.
thing
There was a
around?
forensics investigation.
They had a
completed by the
thorough-
way, just so you know.
Forensic investigation that they billed me for in court to trump up the property value
Is
charges.
there any other Indian stuff in the area right
Yeah,
there?
it's in the area,
There is in the area.
but it wasn't anything to
But it's
do.
not designated as any kind of tribal land or
No.
any kind of a, thing for the Indians or
It's a bird refuge.
it's
It's
a
a
bird refuge.
bird
They
refuge.
used to be Native American until they were chased off their land years ago and marched to Yakima.
And then
Right.
it was ranchers. Hundreds of ranchers owned it.
And
before the
homestead
BLM.
land.
And then they
Homestead.
put out hundreds of ranchers out of business and assumed their property illegally and never took the steps it took to own the land.
So that's the BLM, and that's pretty what most of this fight is about. Is the fact that the BLM has exceeded their authority as far as owning property or controlling property in America according to constitutional law, 10 square miles, Washington D.C., forts, ports, and courts, and all that
Right.
stuff. So they're way out of bounds, and they've done this by putting fees on top of the grazing rights and the land rights, so that the property users, I guess is the best way to put it, the ranchers who have been having these property rights for sometimes 150 years or better, or whatever. These things have been handed down and purchased for family and generation to generation. So they stack up fees, and then after they can't pay the fees, they confiscate the land. Is that sort of what's
Right,
happening?
or they take them to court time and time again like they did the Hammonds. Ever since 1964, they purchased their new ranch, and they were taken to court multiple times and systematically attacked. Water rights issues, fence issues, grazing fee
they're just
issues.
looking for some way to put them out of business. is what
Right,
It sounds like.
yeah, EPA issues.
Right. And they got the full federal government behind them, and you got a little ranch family out there that has to start going and paying all these legal fees.
What is so sad about the Hammonds case is they said their case would have been dropped totally if they signed over 20% of their land to BLM.
2/3. Sorry, it was 2/3 of their land.
Yeah.
So in other words, this is a land grab.
This is extortion by the government.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's documented extortion by the government.
Okay, so we know that a lot of this was charged with, because the fire spread off their property. They were charged. Explain that to us. And the Hammonds
BLM.
and who are the Hammonds? Dwayne and Ryan? Is that
Dwight.
Oh,
Dwight and Stephen.
Dwight. I'm sorry.
Alright,
It's okay, there's a lot of names involved.
There's
A lot of political prisoners due to
Right.
all of these land
Absolutely.
grabs.
Now, BLM lit a fire to deliberately burn out their ranch.
So it was BLM who lit the fire.
Hold on. BLM lit a fire to deliberately burn out their ranch. They lit a fire, a
I
backfire,
see.
To save
To
all of
save-
their winter feed.
and it burned across the fence on their allotment, 127 acres.
So the whole thing was over 127 acres on
Of sagebrush.
Of sagebrush.
That is now worth more than it was back then.
Now the word through the grapevine is that there's actually uranium deposits.
There is.
in this
And if
area.
you look at the geological survey map of the refuge, you'll find out all these stolen pieces of land had high concentrations of minerals.
I see. And that wouldn't have anything to do with like selling secrets to the Russians or 20% of our uranium being sold to Putin or anything like that, right?
It has everything to do with the Clinton Foundation as a whole.
And that seems to be now. That should be. I think the tide is turning because we got new investigations that were actually just opened recently by the FBI out of Little Rock, for whatever that's worth. Trusting our government to do an actual investigation. People should be being handcuffed at this point and indicted and
Right.
charged. But do you think that this is all going to come out and maybe help your case?
Now, Pete Santelli is the newscaster that broke this story, and what the government did is throw him in prison for 2 years.
Okay.
He
Okay.
did what I'm doing right now.
He,
This is terrorism, according to the federal
We've got the
government.
door locked, so relax.
Roger that.
well,
And I'm carrying.
the people, the government does not knock on doors.
Right. They just bust through them.
That's
I
right.
understand.
And so they ruin people's life by throwing good people that are documented the atrocities of the government. They ruin their life and take everything they have and put them in prison. And that's what's happened.
Well, we've also got this recent documents from Larry Wooten, who basically is a whistleblower working for the BLM, saw what was happening in there with the FBI and the BLM, and I mean they actually had a kill list, and they were bragging about how they, people had committed suicide after they pressured them.
Before we get to that, which is extremely important, may I ask, go back to the artifacts really quick, because there's another
Okay.
very valuable point there before we get too far
Sure.
away from it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
In regards to the artifacts that were found at the refuge by the people that stood there in a peaceful protest, what condition were those artifacts in? Can you tell the people?
There is a
what you
lot of artifacts just laying in the mud out in front of the doors, using them as the door stops. The U.S. government and the BLM did not take care of any of the Paiute artifacts. We went to clean the place up, made sure they were safe. We called the leaders of all the tribes that said, hey, this is where your artifacts are. If you want to come in and inspect them, we would want you to come out to the refuge and they're your artifacts, so you could handle them any way you want.
Was there a video by Lavoy Finicum that showed the artifacts so the Paiutes can see their own artifacts, that they're safe, but they're in disrepair or disarray?
Yeah, and
Show
we were
what?
told by the tribes that they really didn't care about the artifacts.
Mm.
Why we were at the refuge. I also called the Yakima Nation tribe to get representatives come down to the refuge when we were at the refuge, and the only tribe that responded is the Celeste tribe, and they did come out, go through all the artifacts, made sure that they were all taken care of and nothing was harmed.
Another thing, just to point out as a witness and someone on the ground, I later went back to the refuge after some months after their arrest. It was just last year actually. I went back in June. And I recorded and I took hundreds of photos of the refuge as it currently is after they received a blank check from the government to get all kinds of new things. They got new mortar on all the buildings. They have all new trash cans, picnic. They have
New
existing,
fences.
They have
New
new
mattresses.
structures, fences, new structures that were never existing there before. So they have many improvements that were completely and wholly unnecessary. However, if they had managed the refuge correctly according to their own regulations and didn't violate their own regulations, these are some of the conditions that you can normally find in a well upheld refuge or bird watching sanctuary or whatever recreational public land you might go to. It looks great now, but when they arrived and I arrived,
So
it
pretty
was truly in
down.
disrepair.
It was run down.
Yeah.
How big is the building there? Is it very big?
Well, there's a whole lot of buildings there. There's the original 1853 wagon train stop, Elliott wagon train stop, which is a nice rock barn, 3-stall milk stall, loft, very beautiful building. Had about 4 foot of household garbage in this building. I mean, there was 10 inches of rat shit, 6 to 10 inches of rat shit on the floor and on top of the garbage. I mean, it was...
Is any of this documented?
It's all documented. So what I did for the month that I was there is I cleaned up the wagon train stop, cleaned it all up, put it back into service, put my horse in it. So I was sleeping outside in the negative 30, negative 20 weather.
At least negative 20 at times, yeah.
And then I moved into the barn and I was uptown then. You know, nice and warm, you know.
Roof over your head.
And I can cover this. I
was
do have the recording
blocked from
showing
the
this
wind. And but it was a beautiful old historic structure that should have been taken care of, and it wasn't taken care of by our government.
So they basically came back in, fixed everything up, and said, you know, this is, you blamed it on you, the disrepair. Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. They blamed the disrepair on all the defendants. They wanted to have a lot more money in restitution from each defendant and already started ordering contractors. And there's also a lot of contractors at one point that were willing to talk but have since been intimidated and scared away, telling us that the government wasn't taking the lowest bid as they're supposed to do, but they were looking purposefully and willfully for the highest bid to spend as much money as possible.
That's right.
Towards the refuge.
Because
and I've seen what it looks like now, and it's multi-millions now.
and because they ballooned up everything so they could up the charges on everybody, because the charges were based on money dollar value.
Well, and that should all be documented as well. It wouldn't be hard to get a hold of those contracts.
And my federal lawyer took that to the courtroom, and she was pretty much told to shut up.
So they did get a hold of it, and besides the attorneys being intimidated in court from the judge herself, Judge Anna Brown,
Right.
besides that, the investigators and anybody else with knowledge and willing to speak were on the ground intimidated by certain entities. And a lot of people have said it was the FBI.
Now, the winning lawyer in the first Bundy trial on October 27th was tased in the courtroom.
I heard that.
I saw that.
He was attacked by the U.S. Marshals by asking a question. He said, "Show me the documents holding my client." And they attacked him brutally and tased him inside the courtroom.
Well,
This
he
is
was
the same
defending, doing
courtroom.
his job.
The same courtroom where I had to spend a bench trial and a jury trial with the same judge.
Wow.
How many other defendants were there in the case that are serving their time or about to serve their time?
Well, I think we started with 27.
We had 26. Well, 26 was the number I remember, but then it dwindled down to 19.
Right.
And
With some plea deals and this and that.
Well, I've
Right.
also heard that some of these people were actually plants from the government.
Now, there was at least 20 plans from the government that went to the refuge to deliberately destroy stuff.
Here's a fun one for you, too. A lot of the discovery. Have you ever heard of a secret tribunal?
Yes, FISA courts.
Is that something that should be conducted on American soil?
Well, they're actually legal in some cases, but that doesn't mean that they're constitutional or, yeah, I mean, there's some
Exactly.
problems. I mean, this whole thing with the
These-
Trump the Trump guys getting warrants from the FISA court to
No.
basically wiretap everybody is turning out to be a complete sham.
Interesting, huh?
Yep.
So yeah, and in
And-
these courts, I did witness that they did actually conduct a secret tribunal.
We
by
never got,
withholding evidence
I don't know
and
if that's
discovery.
now that's illegal. Okay, on this particular, I do have a little bit of legal background. In that particular case, that is illegal, withholding exculpatory evidence in discovery from the both parties are supposed to have the ability to examine all of that evidence.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons that the Bundy trial has been declared a mistrial with prejudice because of the fact that the prosecutors were withholding evidence.
Or even at minimum, when a prosecutor eventually reveals it, but withholds it for a period of time, so therefore not turning it over in a timely fashion. That
Correct.
too is a violation, and
Absolutely.
that happened more often than not.
and the judge never ruled anything in the defendant's favor. And
never
she
held him
cued the
accountable.
prosecution into doing the job different from
Now this is Judge Katie Brown.
Judge Anna Brown.
Anna Brown, and she is an appointee
Federal.
From Obama.
from Obama.
No,
Clinton.
Clinton, sorry, Clinton. I connect the two so much.
So
like they're
we
related.
went against the Clinton Foundation in a building dedicated to William Clinton with a judge appointed by William Clinton.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. So how many people are going to prison?
I am.
You're it?
John Ritzheimer.
Right
John
now, out
Ritzheimer.
of the Oregon stand-up event from the Malheur Wildlife Refuge, we have 4 wrongfully convicted. This is Dwayne Emmer, Jake Ryan, Daryl Thorne, and Jason Patrick. Daryl Thorne and Jason Patrick are currently in. Jason Patrick has not been sentenced, but he has remained incarcerated this entire time. Daryl Thorne has been sentenced and serving his time. And then he has been sentenced and will be serving his time starting January 24th in a completely different prison. And then we're waiting on the sentencing for Jake Ryan, which is now scheduled.
Right.
And then we have those that pled guilty and still facing sentencing, like John Ritzheimer.
Yep.
And he'll be earlier sentenced.
He's
or-
got 2 days.
Yeah, he has 2 days before they incarcerate him. So his sentencing is completed, but he'll be incarcerated even earlier. He is being punished 1 month earlier, being brought back into prison simply because he made contact with, and he had permission from the pretrial services, his people that babysit him. He got permission to go make a visit in Nevada with friends, and it is not in his orders, the conditions and limitations. It is nowhere in his orders and limitations to not talk to those people. He was simply allowed to talk to those people. Judge Anna Brown said it should have been common sense, and I'm punishing you anyway. And so he's going to prison a month early.
Plus, he went and seen Carol out at the Bundy Ranch.
He said, he wanted to say hello to Carol. At the
I would
Bundy
think
Ranch.
that people.
And he's not withheld to. He wasn't ordered not to say.
Now going back to the trial, the judge excused 450 juror members from my side of the state without anybody present. She stacked the jury pool that only had Portland people, big city people that don't understand ranching on my jury. And people that hate guns, they were okay to be on my jury too. So she went systematically, did everything deliberately possible for a conviction in her courtroom.
Basically ruling in favor consistently of the prosecution in order to limit the defense significantly.
Is there any
violations.
way to appeal this at this point?
I have 2,400 appeals in this case alone. My appeal packet is bigger than anybody's seen in their whole life.
Really? So that's going to go to a higher court then.
Well, I just met my appeal lawyer in Medford on my way here.
Right.
Ran into him, kind of a freak thing. I
yeah,
didn't know he was in Medford because he was assigned by the court.
So you're just riding down.
I
the
was
road
just
on-
riding down the road and I get this phone call from him saying, I'm in Medford. I said, well, that's funny. I'm in Medford too. He goes, well, meet me at the coffee shop. So I rode my horse to the coffee shop.
Wow.
And that's how I met my appeal lawyer because they were assigned by the court.
So he's a
says-
public
Defender,
I mean.
And so he goes, I'll get the transcripts probably sometime next year or the year after, and I'll go through the transcripts. He says your appeal packet is the largest appeal packet he's ever seen, and maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, we could overturn this conviction.
Well, you're only in for a year.
Exactly.
Excuse me. Well, that seems like a kind of a rigged deal, isn't it? I would think that a petition at the White House to have a pardon might be a good idea.
Roger Stone is working on those. There's possibilities.
Roger Stone might be working on that.
Might be. There was some contingency, so we're a little confused on that right now. Don't quote us on that, but moving forward, there still will be. There's other ways to skin that cat and other people involved, and legislatively as well as Congress, etc. So we're looking at getting audiences in Congress.
Well, I think Trump's very much a man of the people at this point.
Senator Wyden is part of the problem. He never stepped up. He never came to the defense of the Hammonds. He gave a speech. Beautiful speech, except nobody was there to hear it. That was published.
I think I heard that.
And it was a beautiful speech about why the refuge happened, but he had zero audience.
So he was grandstanding for.
He was grandstanding for absolutely nobody. And if he would have stepped up to help the Hammonds, they served their first prison sentence, and then 6 days before the statute of limitations was up, they were required to report back to a federal prison for a 5-year minimum. So they went to prison, served their time. The judge said to serve.
The judge came back and basically said that she issued the wrong sentencing guidelines the first time, and that they should have been sentenced again to a longer term. Am I correct on that?
No, a different
judge said it would shock the conscience of the people if he were to sentence them under the terrorist acts with a 5-year minimum.
So you were sentenced not prior to, not under the terrorist acts, and then they pulled in the terrorist acts, and you're a terrorist for digging a hole out in the middle.
No, not me. The Hammonds.
Okay.
The Hammonds lighting their backburn to protect their place.
Oh, okay.
All right, so they were sentenced, right? And their judge said it would shock the conscience if they serve any more time than this.
I see.
And then an attorney general appointed by Obama pushed the 5-year minimum
And Aiken.
on terrorism enhancement on them.
So they're currently serving their 5 years.
They're current.
After having already served their first sentence.
For terroristic arson.
Yes, for terroristic arson.
To save
That's
their
what
winter
they're back
feed.
For the same event, same charges, but pulled back in with the terror enhancement charges.
Well, Bush gave us the Patriot Act. And
The Patriot Act.
This is the
That's
kind of
right.
thing that is the problem.
Now,
It can be used against us as American citizens
And
as well.
quite honestly,
It
it is
was
being used
used.
against us.
That's the problem.
It's
I
more
think
likely to be used against us than for anything national government.
I agree.
protections.
I personally believe that was the intent in the first place, was to be able to use it against American citizens.
now
And that's unconstitutional.
they said on day 2 of this protest that I became a terrorist. Okay, I don't remember anything other than eating some bacon in the morning that might have made me a terrorist.
I'm not sure that.
You know, and
As
that's
if it was smoked.
trying to stay warm around a campfire and eating bacon was about the only thing I did besides meet the Hammonds family.
So this was basically just a show of support for the Hammonds family.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
no, he came under different purposes, actually.
I arrived under the impression terrorists had taken over the refuge.
Where did you get this impression from?
Now, I was listening to Oregon Public Broadcasting.
Well, that's where you went wrong, first of all.
Well, it's the only radio station we have in Hebner. I was out shoeing horses. It was a day off. I'd been working like 50-something days straight. And so I went with my buddy shoeing horses to give him a hand because he had some knothead horses to shoe. His name is Shad Bishop, by the way. He's a great horse shoer. Well, we were listening to the radio and they said, terrorists have taken over this refuge. I said, the hell with that. I'm driving over there as soon as we get done shooting horses.
How far was it from where you live?
About 4 hours. In bad weather, 4 hours.
By horse
So-
or car?
Huh?
By horse or car?
Truck.
Like truck. I'm
You
sorry
can't-
about the car.
It's okay. The horse came later though.
Anyway, now I drove straight to the refuge and I showed up at night and I thought I was lost. And I rolled my window down to ask for directions from this guy in a cowboy hat. And I said, where's all these terrorists at? Because I think in cowboy hat, I'm safe. I could ask them where the damn terrorists are and they would give me a good answer. Because I'm thinking Middle Eastern terrorist.
Sure.
You know, Gulf War veteran, PTSD,
Someone got triggered.
you know, that's what I was thinking is I went to find the terrorists that were in my backyard. And that's how I got to the refuge. And I said, where's all these terrorists? And it turned out to be Ryan Bundy. He scratched his head and says, I don't know about any terrorists, but we're about to go eat dinner and we pray before we eat and you're welcome to eat with us. I'm thinking, what the hell? He goes, you're probably in the right spot. So I said, now I have to find out what's really going on.
Right.
Because they're not terrorists. He's a cowboy. I'm a cowboy.
That's pretty ironic that you go there to investigate a terrorist possibly being in our country and you get branded a terrorist and now you're going to prison for it.
That is exactly the same irony we keep running into over and over again.
Wow.
So the misinformation the government put out was that terrorists had taken over the refuge. Me being a first responder in the state of Oregon, because I've been on search and rescue team for 20 years. All my friends are sheriffs and state troopers. You know, all of a sudden, I'm thinking, okay, well, me being a combat veteran, I'm going to go stop the terrorists that are taking over my backyard.
Sure.
And so I could get there before everybody else and handle the situation, you know. So that's how I got involved. Now, I'm on the phone with all my sheriff buddies telling them exactly what happened and what was going on the ground, and it didn't match what the media was saying at all. And I was also on the phone with my district representative to the Oregon House. I was on the phone to like city managers and tribal council members and everybody like that. So, I mean, I'm as much plugged in to my local community as you could get. And still, it didn't help.
Well, that's how far the false narrative is misleading our American people. That's how dangerous it actually is. Now think of the danger. He went to go take care of the bad guys. Myself there already, were the bad guys he thought.
So,
And we could have been put in harm's way over their false narrative and the way they misled the people, being used as a tool for the federal government in their lives. Other people in America could have easily said, not in my backyard, and come to slaughter us themselves.
right.
And we're
Well,
just like them.
That's the citizen.
Lie.
That's the citizen journalists now, because nobody no longer trusts the media or the mainstream or the government for that matter at this point because of this exact thing. I mean, they've been fake news and misleading stories and all this kind of stuff. That's one of the reasons I've been doing the radio program for going on 6 years now. Excuse me. Is because exactly of this disinformation campaign by the federal government against its own citizens.
Right.
And but
Engineer
people-
division.
Absolutely, people are waking up. You're right. It's absolutely been a divide and conquer strategy. Keep everybody fighting amongst themselves while the federal government has gotten completely out of control. Hopefully, and I really believe that the boat is completely turned around and now we're headed back the other way with Trump. the way he's been handling things. But and the
But
fact
even
that
he can't do it alone.
absolutely, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
The fact that the American people are starting to wake up in big numbers is due to just the kind of interviews we're doing here right now. And that's going out on the internet, and it's hitting people by the hundreds of thousands in a matter of a few minutes.
Right.
And that's what's saving our country. The internet has changed the rules of the game to where the government doesn't control the narrative like it used to. And that's only been a few years now in the development, and it's developed a lot more in the last couple.
Now from
Eventually.
when the sun come up on the first full day of the refuge, I met the Hammonds family, and I got their story firsthand from like the grandkids and the brothers and sisters and everybody. And they were good kids. They didn't use horses for their cattle. They used four-wheelers, which I can't stand. You know, I'm kind of a traditionalist. I believe that cowboys should ride horses, you know, and that's a major deal to me, you know. John Wayne rode a horse, so I'm going to ride a horse. But I met them and I heard their story firsthand, and I couldn't believe what the government has done to the Hammonds family. And so the whole focus of the refuge was all about the Hammonds and what the mainstream media did by the direction of the government is make it all about the rednecks with guns. And even I have a college education. You know, I studied anthropology from Kent State University. I'm not your typical cowboy, but I
I'm
understood.
not sure there is a typical cowboy anymore.
I mean, most of us at the refuge did have college degrees in something. We had lawyers and federal judges inside with U.S. Marshals on the ground at the refuge.
Well, and you know, we've seen Lavoie's and what happened to him, Lavoie Finicum, and how he was basically set up in an ambush.
Yes.
And we know that. Anybody who's had military experience knows what an L-shaped ambush looks like.
Yep.
And so
Now, do you know they prepared the roads 2 days in advance for that?
I didn't know that. I mean, we knew they had a drone watching. They did it on a curve so that they couldn't stop even if they wanted to.
Right.
Can you speak to some of the people you've met on the road that actually have been in law enforcement and studied the evidence presented in regards to Lavoie Finicum's
I do
assassination?
not want to mention any names.
No names.
But
was
we
told to
have lots of evidence where they used a street sweeper to clear the road in places and slick the road up in other places.
So what they were doing is they swept it off and then they put water on it basically to make it icy so that he couldn't slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
we've even run into a couple of law enforcement that were not involved with that team, particular on that day, but they were
Now-
given the opportunity to study.
I
event.
have to come to the Oregon State Police's defense. They were deliberately misled by the FBI on the traffic stop. Now, Lavoie was less than a mile from meeting Sheriff Palmer. They knew if he got the Sheriff Palmer and gave one more speech that teaching people about their property rights, people would start waking up and
He was a threat because he was not only a leader, but he was well read. He understood the Constitution. He was very intelligent and very committed to his beliefs.
He was
Yes.
spreading the virus.
Yep.
And we were all considered a virus at this point. Our governor demanded that somebody be shot.
Well, we have something in common in California. Another governor named Brown,
I believe they're related.
and I think they actually are cousins or something. And,
Yeah, brother and sister or
maybe it's in
something.
the DNA. Who knows? But yeah, but they were misled. How well did you know Lavoie? How long did you know Lavoie?
I met Lavoie the first day at the refuge. I spent quite a bit of time talking with him as a cowboy about the things that mattered most was his kids and his grandkids. And his grandkids' freedom was the most important thing.
Right. Well,
What brought you to the refuge, Mo?
Well, I am a veteran, and I was actually currently on military orders, or still technically serving for the Washington Army National Guard, so I had to be very careful with my words. There's some limitations, but if you read the regulations as a soldier and you study up on that, you'll learn that you do have rights. They're limited, and if you understand the limitations and respect them, you can still use your voice and speak up.
So you're still subject to the UCMJ Military Code of Justice.
Absolutely, but it doesn't mean that you have no voice and no opinion. And as I was already online researching due to my disability, and I was waiting, pending a medical retirement packet, which they were dragging their feet on, so bad on them. But as that went forward, I'm doing my research and study, and everybody, I'd come to know Skylar Barbeau in the state of Washington and his Second Amendment rights that were violated. And this led me into a circle of friends and information, and led me to the Hammonds and to attend the rally. I had already started online coverage a lot on my own. I just sort of fell into it. It built up, etc. I get there, I'm finally on the ground to my first event ever to cover it. It was a beautiful rally, very peaceful, and then a separate event took place, and it was very shocking for me. And you know, a lot of fears. I feared the number one fear I held on to from the moment things took a turn was that my friends were there, and I knew that the federal government I once served and still currently technically was serving could kill them. And so I feared for their lives. And I understood their just decision and who they were standing for the Hammonds. I had already come to understand that information. However, I was just simply so scared that these men and women who decided to take a firmer stand would be killed for it. So I finally went out there and I asked questions. I met with Hammond Bundy. I met with Ryan. I met with all the ones that were originally there. And I made a decision. I only had a few hours to react ethically, with integrity, and understand that I may be court-martialed just for my involvement, not understanding if this was going to be looked at as criminal or not, and if I was going to be looked at as a participant just for being supportive. I had all that on my mind, and I woke up and said, I will stay, or I will, cover this.
Well, I'll say this, if Trump hadn't won the election, you might have been.
I would have been shot
I
on
am
sight.
considered an unindicted co-conspirator.
Right.
I'm in their discovery. As it's been mentioned to me from defendants, I cannot see this for myself because it will not be released to us yet. It's still under seal, we believe.
No,
But
no.
I am in there, and I'm told that I was very close to being indicted. I think the only thing saving me
The
is
only
PR.
thing saving her was the fact that Sergeant Moe was a female veteran in good standing.
Right.
She tried to live by the rules put down. I'm not usually one that live by the rules, but she is,
I
you know.
understand.
Squared away, Hua.
Well, and I don't say that lightly. I don't say that election turned the tables lightly.
I believe it did.
It really did, because if we look at just the Tea Party's example of being attacked by Lois Lerner and being on the BOLO list and all that,
Right.
we know from on the inside, I being involved in that case, the fact is that they were trying to put criminal charges against the leaders of the Tea Party
Right.
through the DOJ and Eric Holder and Loretta Lynch and so forth, and they would have had they not lost their toehold in the federal government by the election. And so it just tells you that election probably saved our country in its entirety, and as the momentum swung back towards the American people, and
I voted for him for that very reason,
Yeah.
no matter what at that point.
And-
I just knew he could slow down the momentum of the criminals within.
And a lot of people in Eastern Oregon were hoping for a civil war if Clinton got elected.
well, it probably would have happened.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Well, just thank God that actually she didn't get elected. And whether you like Trump or not is not even the issue. You got the Clinton
Yeah.
crime family.
Yeah,
Gee, am I going to vote for Lucky Luciano?
Yeah.
Or
Absolutely.
the guy that builds builds on real estate. So there was no choice. But going back to this, where we, you sound like you look like you got something on your mind. So
All right, so I got to the second day when I found the Hammond family, and I got to sit down and talk with them. And that's when I was just in prayer about what to do. I was raised Catholic. I go to a Pentecostal church, and all my friends are Mormons now.
Boy, you're all screwed up, aren't you?
But we had church service on the refuge, you know, and we were able to. We all prayed together as a family, and it didn't matter which faith you were. We all
Sure.
prayed together because we were all getting shot together.
Right.
And so we prayed about how we could help. And I thought, with all that misinformation out there about what's really going on, what can I do? Is I went home, got my horse Hellboy, came back, and carried the flag around the refuge every day. That was one of my many duties at the refuge, was as soon as that sun come up, make sure everybody at the refuge seen that flag, and it inspired everybody.
Wow.
And
it became a symbol for that.
not to mention, that's the best damn animal on the whole planet for sagebrush.
He's not partial about his own horse, we can tell.
Yeah.
I
But
happen to like Hellboy too. Though.
I can ride him 140 miles in a single day.
We won't let him, but he's because we pamper Hellboy.
He's a hell of a horse. But I patrolled the grounds at night and in the day on that horse, and that horse told me everywhere the CIA guys that were on the ground, the Blackwater troops that were on the ground
So
trying to.
he was kind of early warning system for you then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
very
And I was
symbolic.
told every day that I was going to be shot off my horse.
So did they threaten you?
Oh yes, there's a $20,000 price on my horse's head.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
to be shot out from underneath me.
Wow.
And then there's threats to shoot him. And then
Yeah, there's lots of threats to shoot me, but I'm not worth $20,000.
Yeah, we're
you know.
dealing with new threats right now on the road too. So he's still
Yeah.
looks forward.
So where do you think these threats are coming from? Government agents? Just people?
I believe they're coming from the CIA myself.
Right.
And I'm not a super real big conspiracy nut, but it looks like it all ties in to the CIA controlling the media.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
You know, to think that there's no conspiracies is to deny your own intelligence these days. I mean, there's no conspiracy, even though they were selling secrets, uranium to the Russian and the Clinton Foundation, and we could go on and on and on and on. Of course, two people getting together to conspire is a conspiracy. I mean, so we know that there's conspiracies. How deep does it go into our government? Well, I think we're going to find more and more out about that as we're seeing that there are conspiracies. And I think there's a conspiracy to get Trump out of office since he's
Yes.
been elected. And that's becoming more and more
Apparent.
in the light. And, sunshine is the best disinfectant. That's why I was going to compliment you on your journalism and getting involved, because that's really what's turning this around and saving America, is the fact that everybody's getting involved and starting to put sunshine on this stuff. And
Yeah.
that's what we need to do more and more.
Well, there's a
That's why
couple
we're
of
here.
simple things behind it, and just to help to encourage others. And thank you for saying that. I'm honored, but I want to encourage more that are still possibly even serving or now retired veterans of any service, branch, or department. I want to encourage you to understand that retribution is only one form of administrative violations that can come against you. But if you have the courage already to stand, to serve your country and put your life on the line, whether you're in local law enforcement or federal government going to war, then you certainly have the courage to face any possible retribution for doing the right thing and take a stand. And if you dot your I's and you cross your T's, like I have, and do your homework and keep your bearing,
Right.
keep your military or governmental department, whatever agency bearing you need to keep, stay professional, you're going to be fine, and you can fight that retribution. I did. I was investigated while at the refuge, and it was shut down within 11 hours from the Army National Guard under pressure from the FBI through the Pentagon. And it didn't make me flinch. I continued to move on. Did it scare me? A little bit inside, because I worried about my family, my senior enlisted husband at the time I was married to, children about to go to college. I had everyday concerns like the next person, but we had the Hammonds being reincarcerated. These are Americans on my soil that I swore an oath to. Now, I may not be combat ready physically anymore and disabled, but I have a voice. I have a mind, and I still know what's right from wrong. And I have courage, so here I am with him
So,
and many others. And I'll keep doing it.
me being a combat veteran, reconnaissance specialist in the U.S. Army for 10 years, I have fought for my country, and now my country has used every asset that it could against me on the ground in Burns. We're talking, they had attack helicopters, armored truck, Blackwater Special Forces troops on the ground. They used the media against us. They have went after my livelihood and my money in my bank account and destroyed my marriage. I mean, I have lost, you name it, I have lost everything to do with my business, and they made it that way. You know, I couldn't defend myself in court. We never got a fair trial. When I came back home to Oregon, all the old men around the gas station, I'm a hero. But what the news media portrayed me as is a terrorist.
Right,
So who's going to call a terrorist to have their welding done?
right.
So
I would think that that has changed, though, I hope. Because people don't believe the news media anymore, especially the mainstream. I mean, there's some that do, but there's some people that vote for a Ped Rock for president if you gave him for free cheese. You know, there's always going to be people out there that just do not, you know, track on anything that's honest and right. But I would hope that that would be turning around, because most people are starting to understand, and I think Trump has had a big deal to do with it, not to beat Trump's drum, but the fake news is really fake news.
Fake news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to remind President Donald Trump on occasion, though, that the very fake news that he understands to be fake news, he has still also listened to their spoon-fed lies. I'm not downing him. I'm just saying that
Right.
he didn't actually react during the campaign trail very heavily in regards to them. He talked a lot about it. He garnered a lot of our
Right.
votes from our circles for talking about it, but he also seemed to be on the fence, and also making a few comments here and there that were negative towards these, what I call
Well,
P3, Patriot
And I
Political
think
Prisoners,
that, you know, we could second guess him.
because he
and
watched
I-
the fake news.
And I'm not a Trump sycophant, but at the same time, this is a battle,
Yes.
and this is a battle with a lot of different elements, and you can't. It's hard to be 100% right about everything, no matter what. I
Right.
mean, the biggest thing,
True story.
the biggest problem we have today in America, as far as our information is, it's hard to know what is true, no
Yeah.
matter what source it's coming from, because it has been clouded with so much disinformation and untruths
Yep.
that you have to spend time vetting and looking, and even then sometimes you're not sure what's going on, and you kind of have to use your own gut and you know, discernment and your own intelligence. And I think that
You become
it's
an
getting better.
analytical specialist.
I think
You
so.
become a professional analytical specialist. You could be on the think tank team, actually. You should be getting paid $1 million for
You know,
this.
just to tell my little story about getting involved as in the radio station as a talk show host and so forth, they brought me on as a guest, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, it was like, here, you've got your own show now. I didn't even know how to spell radio, you know, and so, you know, but there was a need, just like you see the need, and a lot of other people see the need, to get some real truthful information that's
Right.
alternative to this mainstream, you know,
To the
noise.
lies, something that
Absolutely.
contradicts the lies. It's
Absolutely.
time that we do that now. They're not winning the war, but they certainly have won many battles for decades now in silencing and dumbing down Americans and misleading them. And it's time that the silent majority not be silent anymore. Silent majority is getting louder and will continue to do so. Why? Because they're educated, and that's where their power
Well,
is.
and that's why we're here with Dwayne, and that's
Yeah.
why Dwayne is writing down to go to prison, is because he wants to make sure that there's people out there that are seeing what is happening. And that's why we're here interviewing him, to make sure that his message gets out there, that he's been railroaded, he's been shafted by an out-of-control government that needs to be put in check, and this guy should be pardoned and given a medal or an award for civic duty. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, what kind of medals do cowboys get?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Horseshoes.
Horseshoes, you know. I'll get a silver.
Biscuits and gravy. You know?
I'll get a silver horseshoe to go with my 3 combat patches.
Well,
you
there
know.
you have it. And but the thing is that the real deal is that you shouldn't be going to prison for digging a hole and trying to do the right thing up in a refuge to support some cattle ranchers that are being railroaded as well.
Right.
It's wrong.
And you know, anybody that makes a stand against, you can never match the firepower of the U.S. government. There's no country in the world that can match the firepower of the U.S. government.
Right.
And so when I carried an 1860 cap and ball revolver on the refuge to protect myself from the FBI that were trying to kill me,
For any threat. There were a lot of threats.
there was a lot of threats at the refuge.
There might have been another guy just like you looking for terrorists.
I'm sure there was. But I was, you know, I wore red, white, and blue, and I carried the American flag every single day. If I had an ISIS flag and I carried it around the refuge, they probably would have let me go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it was the proud American symbolism of the cowboy that they need to stop.
Right. Which they're not going to. And the secret to government is getting it, you know, like you say, nothing can stand against it, but we're starting to change what's being talked about in the halls of government.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of good people in government who believe in freedom, who do believe in the flag and patriotism, and you've got to get those people in the power seats to get rid of these other guys that are, you know, believe in what? Communism, the manifesto, socialism, take your pick. I mean, you know, in our schools and so forth, and that's being purged. But more and more as we go, and like I say, this kind of thing is going to be talked about probably 100 years from now.
Yep.
As you know, history and history classes that people stood up for freedom and what was right. So I gotta say, you know, we gotta commend you for what you're doing. Although, you know, I'm not sure that it's going to end well.
It doesn't matter how it ends.
Yeah.
It matters how you stand.
When we knew they were coming to kill us after they shot Lavoie, I said goodbye to my family. I said goodbye to everything I ever cared about to make that stand. And we knew that they were going to come in and do another Waco.
Right.
And I couldn't let my friends be killed. And so I was going to fight. And it's all about having the right to self-defense, which they made illegal in the federal courts.
Right.
You know, the FBI it's not, they don't have the right to just come in and kill us. They don't have the right to just come in and kill anybody they want.
No, they don't. They might have actually made it legal, you know, under the Patriot Act and a few other things, but that stuff has to be overturned. But, you know, the president under the Patriot Act could legally come in and kill anybody they wanted to.
My right,
You know, but unconstitutional laws should be null and void.
I
My-
agree with you, absolutely.
my right to self-defense doesn't come from this government.
I agree.
My right to self-defense comes from God Almighty.
And that's kind of what I'm saying here. It might be legal, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has a, you know,
And
lawful
we
It
authority.
wasn't
always
right to
have-
have slaves. It wasn't right to put people on the back of the bus because of the color of their skin. And it isn't right to just murder your American citizens on American soil because you
Absolutely.
wrote some Patriot Act legalese speak thing
Right.
that has nothing to do with constitutional rights. If anything, that kind of a Patriot Act belongs in Iran. That's where they like
Well,
that
anytime
crap.
the government puts a law together, if it says it's the Patriot Act, it's probably the Unpatriot Act.
Yep.
If it's the Social Security
Yeah,
Act, it's
is
probably the Social Insecurity Act.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
and that's how it's been for quite some time. But
It's getting worse exponentially.
And when they took away my right to self-defense, the judge looked at the jury multiple times and said, it took hours and hours for Dwayne to dig that hole.
She lied.
She lied to the jury over and over. This is the judge.
so you
This
had
is
a backhoe, you did it in what, 4 or 5 scoops or something?
yeah, 4 or 5 scoops.
Yeah, you didn't have the equipment, which she noted, and she
It
knows
was a
that.
total of 6 minutes, according to my lawyer.
So why would she
The
say?
feds say 8
so
minutes.
why would she say hours and hours? What would that
To
benefit?
put in the jury's head that I did this over hours and hours and hours.
Premeditated, willful.
So self-defense, they ruled, happens real fast. Self-defense, dig a hole, jump in the hole. That's what we did. We dug the hole, we jumped in the hole.
And she then decided to make it sound like it took hours and hours and it was much larger than it was. Simply to, and she did this on her own, proffering from the bench, practicing from the bench.
And
It's a huge violation.
And she kept poking the prosecutor, hey, wake up, you should object to this.
Yes, she practiced from the
Well,
bench.
you know, the Bundys filed a lawsuit today, I guess, for malicious prosecution. But you know, they're suing the court, and I'm not sure who all the prosecutors or maybe even the judge. I haven't read the transcripts at all. But evidently, for malicious prosecution, they're going after him now.
Good.
Yeah.
That's new news for us. I did hear Clive
I've
Bundy
heard
speak
that.
today, and I heard him say he was undecided. So has
Well,
it changed since
now,
that speech?
I heard, and I haven't had time to go do the homework on it, but from a really good source that they filed paperwork to do a malicious prosecution. If that's incorrect, we'll correct,
figure it out. Yeah, we'll
correct the
sort it
record,
out.
But that was the last.
And you
I
never
heard.
know. I mean, he could be saying one thing right now because he doesn't want to just show his hand right away. I mean, these are really shady people to be dealing
Right.
with. So
But it
showing their hand-
sounded like a pretty solid source, so we'll just
Yeah,
have
we'll
to
have
see.
to
Yeah.
see.
I
I hope
also
so.
have to address
We all hope so.
the Harry Reid Foundation is part of the problem in both cases.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the corruption. Now, Harry Reid was in the trial for corruption. Whatever happened to the corruption that we already brought to the surface before all this started?
Right.
See, it's all being swept under the rug.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens as this thing comes out. I mean, you know, they don't call him. Oh, I guess Rush calls him Dingy Harry. I always call him Dirty Harry. But you know, his ranch was next to the Bundy's ranch down there. We know that he wanted to do some things with solar down there, and I'm not sure what his connection is to the Malheur stuff. We know that there's uranium up there, and so we'll just have to wait and see what's going to come out on this. And the tale is just now starting to be told, because, like I say, the tide is turning and people are seeing it. And a lot of vindication happened when they had to dismiss and let Bundy go the other
Right.
day and call a mistrial and all the stuff that came out. So we'll see what happens. I don't think the fat lady has sung yet.
All right, and
I think it's not
another
over.
thing is the paid protesters that were protesting us. All the professional paid protesters from the biodiversity group,
Right.
I believe, got funds from Harry Reid.
I would not
Not
be shocked
Soros.
at all. I mean, I was just going to say, or Soros or
So,
somebody. You know.
Killian,
Suckling, carrying suckling. He's
all right, from the biodiversity group.
I would change my name right away anyway.
I
No,
keep telling him, Suckling, you suck.
but he's actually a terrorist, and a legal terrorist at that. And he takes people to court over frivolous lawsuits, and then takes the government to court over
Yeah,
frivolous lawsuits.
I totally
And so
believe it.
he's tied in
Affecting
with the
legislation.
Sierra Nevada Club.
Well, there you go, right there. I mean, the Sierra Club is, you know, known ties, communist ties, known socialistic ties. You know, and this is a land grab. This is a government takeover. And it's just like in California. Anybody who believes that we're not following a socialism, you know, march into communism, does not understand what it is. Does not understand the facts. And that's what this really is has been a concerted takeover across the board of the land for the benefit of the government's consolidation into a centralized body that
Right.
basically run our lives from top to bottom. So
Right.
that's the goal. But I don't think they're winning anymore. I think they've been winning for a long time. But you got to have enough control to make the people do it, you know, and want, you know, get their guns and be a good way, get their health care, and all that stuff is starting to be reversed. And so we'll just have to wait and see. We are definitely in a battle for our freedom. There's no
Yes.
question.
And that battle only will be won by Americans, by we the people, with our
Right.
voices
I agree.
all together.
Well, that's the ultimate.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate purveyor of the law and freedom. It's we the people is the first sentence for a reason. We
Yes.
can't depend on our government officials. We can't depend on our government elected officials or any of these guys, we have to stand up as Americans and fight the good fight and make sure that they're following the Constitution as it was intended in God's law.
See, there's something wrong with my DNA that I have to think for myself and do what I think is right.
Right.
And that is the most important thing about Americans as a whole, is if it's wrong, then I'm not going to do it, and I'm going to stand for what's right no matter how bad it hurts, and it has hurt greatly.
Right.
That leads me to want to ask you a question I've never asked you, but others.
Did I shoot anybody at the refuge?
No.
No, bummer.
No. If it was anybody we were going to get violent with, it was me.
Yeah.
We love to
I was
tease
going
each
to
other.
shoot my horse at the refuge.
Oh my gosh. Oh Lord. Okay, Peter, go away. So my question for you, and I've asked a few others, but I've never asked you, and I've been with you for a while now. Would you, after everything you've endured, and everything I've witnessed you endure, in court, before court, and how peaceful you were, I am a witness and observer of how peaceful.
Peaceful.
Extremely peaceful.
I would never describe myself as peaceful.
Yeah, you behaved
Just
peaceful
depends on
in
the
this
circumstances,
case.
I
It does
guess, yeah.
depend on the circumstances, truly. But in this situation, you were extremely peaceful, and that's what I observed. After everything that you've done and done well, in my opinion, with, would you do it all over again?
I would have to. Our kids' freedom is what's at stake here. My 14-year-old little girl means the world to me, and the freedom that you and me had as kids, they will never experience unless we make it back to the way it was.
I agree.
And where we could just jump on a bike and go down to the creek and go
Without a
fishing
helmet.
without a helmet,
We
right?
all survived.
No, I don't know how.
And we used to ride around in pickup trucks and drink from a garden hose and go camping with our buddies in the mountains and not even think twice about it.
Right.
And our kids' freedom is...
Yeah, you can't even ride in the back of a pickup. I remember we used to set up on the rail with my grandpa, go to the swimming hole,
Yeah.
you know, and head for the swimming hole after he got off work. And now you'd probably get a ticket or
get arrested.
maybe get arrested for child endangerment or something, you know.
Yeah. And I rode in the back of a pickup from San Bernardino to Mitchell, Oregon. You know, and that's just what we did.
Actually, it's more comfortable than sitting in the front seat.
Yeah. I was standing up on top of the row bars with Uncle Harvey. He was sitting there right beside me, and we rode the whole way up I-5 like that. And we had a ball. But our kids' freedom is what's at stake. And if we just turn a blind eye to what's going on, it's over.
I agree. Yeah, we got to be involved to keep it free. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So
Use them or lose them.
yeah, and that's what's happening. I this year I have been more optimistic, and Sally knows this from knowing me for quite a while. I am more optimistic this year than I have been in a very long time because I can see what's happening. Where before we were losing battle after battle after battle, and now we're starting to win. And you know, you can't help but parrot Trump a little bit. You know, winning. You know, Charlie Sheen. We don't want to parrot him because he's an idiot. But we're starting to see the tide turn. We're starting to see the ship turn around because more and more people. Here we are in the middle of nowhere doing an interview with you, and this is going to go, you know, worldwide. And you know, I mean, everybody's doing that. It's not just us, and I'm not trying to praise what we're doing as much as I'm saying we're just a little microcosm piece of the cog of the wheel of freedom that is starting to turn across the country, and that's very, very
it's quite amazing,
gratifying.
and I really appreciate the chance to tell my story. When they came in
I had full signal.
with snipers,
They just cut me off.
what
I'm still going.
Good.
when they came in with snipers, and they came in with Black Hawk helicopters, and they had assault teams on every airport within 100 miles, or even 150 miles, because they were in Prineville and Redmond, and they
so
had.
they were preparing for an all-out attack. is
Now,
what you
my
said.
cousin calls me up. She's been in the Air Guard. she said they were preparing Tomcats to come in and do an airstrike.
Good grief. Are you kidding
So,
me?
and she's almost ready to retire. My cousin's awesome. She's whatever crew chief, you know. Tomcat, was it 14? F-14?
I don't know. I was already not
Pretty awesome aircraft.
Yeah,
But
I prefer the ground.
the main thing that came out about the refuge is they were using military drones. We're talking Predator
So-
drones,
Right.
30-foot long Predator drones with missiles on them
You
above
can see
us.
them really high too and
So
tell
how
the
did
difference.
that not occur?
What, a drone strike?
They were
Them
planning
coming in
to
and
do.
killing everybody. I mean,
They were planning on coming
Cameras.
and killing everybody. David
cameras were
Fry's
everywhere.
live stream is probably the only thing that saved us the night Lavoie was shot.
and that's okay. So
I have to elaborate on that though because of my experience. Look, the reason why when I chose to do what I did, I told you what my fear was, that they would kill everybody.
Right.
That's a very real fear.
Sure.
Pete Santilli, myself, and a few others, and then more came around because we asked. We said, "Bring your cameras." It's the cameras because they can't just slaughter everybody with full-blown wide evidence with all our cameras live streaming or even quickly escaping and upload. They couldn't take that risk that
And that
time,
should
but
be
they
the
got
moral.
that is why they found another way when they with their informants in there found out about this meeting in Grant County.
I see.
So that's when they made a determination, utilizing the information from their informants, working with Ammon Bundy and Lavoie Finicum and others on that convoy.
So
They
after
made
they
a
shot
determination
Lavoie-
to at least kill the
Right.
leaders or try to set them up at least or get them out at
Okay,
least
I
and just
see.
destroy the whole thing that way. That was the only option they were left with at that point because going in where all the cameras were wasn't going to work anymore. But getting them when they went away from their refuge because they came and went all the time.
Yeah.
And then they found out about this event.
No.
And then basically you guys gave yourselves up.
Well, what I did is I opened a dialogue with the FBI.
We started
I
pulling out a
drove
single.
to a checkpoint, a military
Yeah, good
checkpoint, out in the middle of nowhere. It was a herringbone setup on armored vehicles. They had 30 or 40 officers on the ground, sniper rifles. It was a complete military checkpoint like what we would use in Bosnia. I know I helped design the stupid thing when I was in the service at Fort Riley. This is what kind of checkpoints that we set up to handle POWs and occupied territory. It is not a police checkpoint. Okay, I was stripped naked at gunpoint in the snow. I was given back my clothes and asked to go back to the refuge. And I did, by the FBI. And they said, if you don't have a warrant for your arrest, you could pass right through the checkpoint. And that was the message I took back to the people at the refuge. And then I was promptly re-stripped upon returning to the checkpoint at gunpoint,
Completely interrupted.
held for about an hour without my damn clothes,
And we're back now.
and I was driven across the state at 100+ miles an hour, handcuffed in the back of a black SUV.
And that's when you started. That's when you're incarcerated, and that's when this whole thing actually
Now, I was arrested without a warrant for my arrest, or a search warrant, or anything like that. It wasn't for 4 days they finally had a warrant for my arrest?
After 4 days, after.
Yeah, 4 days after they finally signed the arrest warrant. Now that's illegal where I come from. Nobody ever read me my rights. I was a prisoner of war at this point. And then they booked me into a Multnomah County jail.
The audience here would like to know if I can just do a brief recap on what they missed, just a touch up. Real quick, a lot of you are educated on this in regards to the refuge and how things were handled. Mark had asked the question too, as far as the why they didn't come in and just slaughter us if that's what we believed were to happen, and why they just didn't do that with the drones and everything. We were discussing the drones and the weaponry and the monitoring that was above us and all around us, right? So we had described some of that, and then you gave an answer in regards to why they didn't kill us. What was that answer again? And then I expounded on that.
The cameras.
The cameras.
The cameras.
yeah.
Cameras.
And David Fry, I have to say,
David Fry, thank you. That's what
David Fry's live feed is what kept everybody alive.
for the last 4.
And Sean and Sandy, great people. David Fry, Jeff Manna, they're all wonderful people. And they're all very kind and caring and considerate people also. Do anything, give you the shirt off their back if they think it would help you. You know, these are the kinds of people that the government has decided are terrorists. You know, and so what they did is they manipulated the news feeds and showed the worst moments and played them up. What they showed David Fry after he'd been up for 78 hours, kind of delirious. He's a pro marijuana guy and loves pizza, so. David Fry is an absolutely amazing, smart, intelligent guy.
He really is a genius.
But when he's been up for a week straight, all he wants is a pound of weed and 10 pizzas, and he's happy. You know.
He got the federal government, the FBI on the ground that were there to during these negotiations, quotes. He got them to say and exclaim "Hallelujah," and then he'd leave, and they did. It's all caught on audio. And I'm on the phone listening through other phones. I'm on multiple, like we had some sort of crazy network going on, me and Deb Jordan. And I can hear him demand pizza, cookies,
a pound of weed.
A pound of weed. And I want the feds to say hallelujah. And I can hear the feds with because they use their mics and everything so that everybody can hear. They finally said, hallelujah.
And he came
said,
out.
okay. And he came out. He made an absolute joke of it. Why? This is a genius in him. We were all so scared he was going to kill himself or get himself killed, at least suicide by cop kind of a thing. We were beginning, even those of us that knew him were like, what the heck? This was a side of him we've never seen. But that's not what was happening at all.
What David does in the real world when he's not.
He's got his own little PSYOP mission going on.
He works for a dental office. He collects the billing from insurance companies. That's what he does for a living. And so what they did is they showed a crazy guy demanding weed and pizza and twisted everything up after a week of no sleep.
A week of no sleep, but there is a genius and a method in this madness. There was a method in this madness. I know. The thing is, he made fools of them. He made fools of them. I mean, to meet his demands and yell hallelujah. Who has ever gotten the federal government to yell out hallelujah and then I'll come out?
To show his genius, the Fed shut off his cell phone. He took it all apart and hot-wired it so he could continue his live stream. He's super intelligent.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he just thinks it is a circus. The federal government and the atrocities that we're all now much more aware of, and then some, he is saying this is a circus. There's a message there. And that's the method of his madness. His message is, this is one gigantic circus, so I'm going to laugh it off.
Yeah, one big problem, because that, if you look at each case, the Bundys, the Hammonds, and what the federal governments were doing before, during, and after all of this stuff, being completely out of control, and basically targeting American citizens. I mean, that's a pretty serious charge.
Right, and the militia came in with an attitude about no more Wacos.
Right.
So they wanted to provide
that's a good deal.
A buffer zone around the refuge, saying if you strike the refuge, we're going to strike back, or we're going to defend ourselves. So the message was always that I will defend myself, and I'm not going to let you hurt my horse. And if somebody assaults my horse, they're going to get shot.
Right.
And that was my personal message to everybody. Don't attack me and don't attack my horse, because I will shoot back.
Well, and we know that they were actually trying to provoke from the Larry Wooten disclosure letter that he did as a whistleblower. They were trying, I don't know about Malheur, but on the Bundys for sure, they were trying to provoke them into starting something so they could fire back.
Yes.
And there is a great connection with Brett Singh and
Daniel Love. Now,
So there's
these
a
two
connection
guys
between
are,
the two
are good
cases.
friends. They operated as a team together. They're talking to each other every day. And so right after the Oregon standoff, Daniel Love and Bretschke, Love loses his job, and Bretschke retires, goes to work for Greenbrier Securities,
Right.
which is like a CIA front company.
So it's very interesting. A lot of what Special Agent Wooten had brought forward in his whistleblowing, he had been reporting his discrepancies, noted discrepancies for some time prior to that final report we all got to see.
Right.
And B, he also brought out numerous accusations in regards to office toxicity and hostile environment.
Very unprofessional.
Very.
Unprofessional.
Yeah.
Even
he knows a
attacking
bunch of stuff.
supporters, body shaming, the things that we see from government trolls online, very similar
Right.
misbehavior, very similar misconduct.
Well,
Not only that,
name calling, they're going
Now,
to kick people's teeth in.
let's look at the Lavoie shooting. The same thing happened on the ground, trying to instigate after they killed Lavoie. They were talking shit to the survivors of the shooting.
Well, you could see them shooting. They're all, hunkered down because they have the phone on inside the cab.
Right.
You could see them taking pot shots at them. I mean, even though they're hunkered down, just
and then lied that it was just all rubber bullets. It
Right.
was sprayed with live ammunition.
It was sprayed. And that truck has not been seen by us or anybody else since.
Yeah, there was one photo that got leaked out. That's all we've ever seen.
And that was taken
Well-
at the Pacific Pride.
At the Pacific Pride, exactly.
I would
Thank
think
you,
that
Cindy.
that's going to come out because isn't Jeanette Finicum suing the government at this for a wrongful
Wrongful
death?
Now, keep in
There's
mind,
a huge investigation.
Lavoie Finicum's shoulder holster was with me. His sidearm was with me.
So you know for a fact he was unarmed.
I know for a fact he wasn't armed.
Wow. So he didn't have a shoulder holster. It looked like to me that he was reaching because someone shot him.
They shot him in the back,
The
and
side
that
of
was
the
his
back.
exit
And
wound.
that was his
And he grabbed his side where the exit wound was.
So they basically murdered him.
Yes.
And
They
they continued to shoot him. That was not the final blow.
But they used that shot to trigger the Oregon State Police into
Grab.
killing him.
Because he grabbed at his abdomen where he was wounded, which is a natural reaction. Also, if you notice in the video, something else I noticed, his hands were up, right?
Right.
He gets shot, he goes down, but he barely touches it. He kind of goes down, but he knows, oh crap, I better get my arms back up. He begins to start to do that. Now, if you understand muscle extremities and how the abdominal muscles, if you've ever had a child, I have, and you're in contractions, it hurts to move your arms up. If you have a wound in the abdomen area or chest area, those muscles all get pulled and stretched by your bicep muscles and your arm
It
muscles.
was a very
You can't go
surgical
back.
shot.
Right.
Now you can't get your arms back up at least straight, but you can see him struggle to try, and he's still trudging through the snow and shot. But that one final reach that he did just to hold ouch, that ouch feeling, they continued to shoot him and shoot him and shoot him, and there was nothing he was
How many
grabbing
shots
for.
did they hit him with? do you know?
I believe there was upwards towards 11.
Okay, because I was thinking it was only like 3 or 4, because it looked like from the video that he shot him. The one guy just came up and shot him in the back of the head. Is what it looks like.
I
The
also
headshot
believe
was
that they
there was a
walked up to
final
him and
headshot.
crushed his skull with the butt of a rifle.
Well,
We have
I'm
a lot to still look coming out. of the
That should
forensics
be coming
report.
out if that's true. Maybe we'll find out more about what is true and what is not, because
I seen one of the autopsy reports. I don't know if it's the correct autopsy report, but I did see one of the autopsy reports says at least 11 times.
I think the thing that was most striking to me after he was down is they let him lay out there in the snow with no help for quite a while.
Now, less than
On their own
100
cameras.
yards away, there was an ambulance on top of the hill that they never
Never
utilized.
Right.
Never.
Yeah, they just let him lay there.
Yeah.
So they made no
They
attempt
had no
to help him at all.
None whatsoever.
And so
amazing
they let
others
him
lived.
bleed out right there in the snow, and they could have saved
And
him.
Victoria just finished her paramedic.
Right, Victoria
Sharp.
was a paramedic, and she was inside the car.
And for your audience, Victoria Sharp was the young lady that was also in the cab with Lavoie Finicum. Shauna Cox was the other, and Ryan Bundy. Ryan
So,
Bundy was shot in the arm.
Right.
but they just let him bleed out in the snow.
Wow.
And it wasn't a rubber bullet that shot Ryan Bundy. The evidence is still in his arm.
Yes, he still has a bullet to this
Oh, he
day
does?
in his arm.
Wow.
And he refused to let the courts take it from him.
I didn't know that. See, that's interesting stuff.
They tried
Yeah.
to take it from him down in Nevada.
Yep.
They tried to take him out of the Nevada prison, and the Patriots, our communities, began a calling and emailing campaign that shut their phones down. And they decided it might be in their best interest to leave him alone.
Well, some of this stuff, this is the first time I've heard that. 'Cause some of this stuff hasn't been getting out, I guess, or I haven't been following it as closely as
I
I.
read it, but it was a while ago.
Right.
About a year ago.
Yeah.
When they
We
tried to
live it.
We,
We
this
live it.
this
We are
has
activists
affected
every day.
every aspect of
Every
my
aspect,
life.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And this goes all back to, for what? Because we simply stood peacefully for the Hammonds.
Right.
Because of the crimes done to them. So
Don't-
not only do we now have crimes against the Hammonds, now we have crime upon crime against we the people.
Yeah.
If it happened to them, if it happened to us, if it happened to the Bundys before Nevada 2014, Ruby Ridge, Waco, it's gonna, who's
Right.
next?
What's that stuff?
If you can make me a terrorist after my service record, they can make anybody a terrorist.
Right. Right.
I mean, there's no question.
Well, I mean, I guess the
Wow.
moral of the story is make sure there's a lot of cameras around and to try not to protest any place that's far out in the middle of nowhere. I don't know.
And you know, if that's what makes me a terrorist, is that I am weaponized with my voice and my camera,
Right.
then so be it. I am your domestic
Well, you have to
terrorist.
be. You have to be, and everybody should be thinking about that. If you go to any of these events or you do anything like that, make sure you have a camera with you.
And 20% of the people who show up to everything are paid by the FBI.
Remember that too.
And they're usually the ones instigating broken laws. Because what happened is they...
promote. We do not promote that violence.
Yeah.
Right.
So they promote violence and breaking the laws. The FBI does. They talk people into blowing shit up. They do all sorts of horrible stuff to entrap you, and they walk off scot-free.
At least 3 entrapment attempts against me ever since the refuge. At least 3 attempts. I laughed them off. Told them, what do you think I'm gonna do?
Yeah.
You know. I mean,
Did you have any
absolutely not.
idea who those people were when at the time?
Yes.
Some, yes. Some,
Yes.
yes.
Terry Linnell, when she showed up, we knew she was a FBI informant. We
And who
still...
do you
They still
report to?
embraced her though.
And who do you tell?
No, we invited her in. We treated her just like everybody else. We knew she was working for the FBI.
Will Coleman.
Will
Gilman,
Coleman, Alan Vardner, I believe his name was Lewis Arthur. There's a few others, but we
And
knew
for those
these
without a
people.
302 report, some of them not having like Lewis Arthur,
Right.
they were definitely agitators,
Right.
provocateurs.
Mark McConnell.
Mark McConnell.
We
was
found out
informant.
later after the voice shooting that he was directly gained like $25,000 the day he handed the Voy over.
Yeah, more money than we thought at first.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, bought himself a lot of new toys too. Bragged
So-
about it online. Still harassed us and bullied us.
I
online,
mean, how
slandered
much
us.
are your friends' lives
Still active.
worth? Because my friend's life is worth everything. You know, it's not a money value on my friend's life.
Right. Right.
So
Well, we
Wow.
probably need to think about wrapping this up. Is there anything else we want to get out here before we?
She's a friend of mine. I invited her to come.
oh,
I know these guys. I do have a question. Have you talked to Dennis Michael Lynch? Do you know who
I
he is?
tried. I know exactly who he is. He,
Do you care if I try to push him?
yeah, go
Oh, we've
ahead.
all tried already, actually,
I know.
and he knows a little bit about
I mean,
the Bundys.
Dennis
Jeez,
Michael
yeah,
Lynch
he
was
was-
at the Bundy Ranch. I mean, I'm sure he knows.
He also testified in court.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
I would love to get mainstream.
Okay.
Media.
I'll see what I can do. I took a lot of notes and I have a link to
Great.
your blog that you.
I mean, Pete Santelli broke the story about Uranium One.
Right.
First thing they did is throw him in jail for 2 years.
Right.
619 days.
There you go.
Isn't that amazing? I
And
mean,
he is a
Friend,
Marine,
journalist.
disabled Marine, you know. And they could do that to anybody.
right. Yeah, it's true. It's amazing how far we've come. And I remember the whole thing about the Uranium One. We were reporting on that a year and a half ago, and everybody thought we were nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, now it's in mainstream media.
Yeah.
Gee, where's those tinfoil
Well,
hats that I'm supposed to be
And
wearing?
we've done that with on several stories. That
Well,
the main,
Agenda 21.
Agenda 21.
Oh,
lots
yep.
of different things where they just ignore stuff,
Yeah, and
black it out, and then
they ignored us when we said Agenda 21.
Yeah.
Why are we being pushed to the cities?
and then two or three
You know?
years later, you're a prophet. You know, I mean.
Yeah.
So I think more and more of that.
You're a prophet. I got that. I'm a prophet now.
Only
you're a
in the
prophet.
Pentecostal church. I'm not a prophet in the Mormon church. I'm a saint in the Catholic church
Hellboy's a
because,
prophet for you.
you know, Saint Dwayne.
Sweet. Oh no.
I was raised Catholic.
But you know, the thing is that it's true
God
that,
help us.
that the people that were covering a lot of these stories early on, you know, were called names or
Yeah.
you are an idiot.
And they deliberately send people to troll you. In our case,
right.
hundreds of people, full-time Army technicians on the computer trolling us.
I have had to really. It took a lot of energy and time and effort to curtail my page away from the trolls, and and secure my page. Not because I want to silence their rhetoric, but because I want the environment comfortable for those that are really there to learn.
Right.
And I work very, very diligently at that still. It's they are truly out there in the thousands.
I've had a lot of fun with them, quite frankly.
So have some of us. I do. They call me Staff Sergeant Moo, and I do. I have this ongoing game with them. They nickname me Staff Sergeant Moo because my moniker is Staff Sergeant Mo. It's a term of endearment from my soldiers that I led, and some of my superiors actually liken to it as well. But the Staff Sergeant Moo thing, I actually embrace it, get a kick out of it. Well, we happened to meet Liberty the cow.
Liberty the little heifer.
Sarita
Yeah.
and Manuel's ranch.
Yeah.
And Liberty the cow adored me a little bit much.
Tried taking our lunch.
Tried taking our lunch. And so I got all these selfie photos with Liberty the cow all over me from one side to the next.
She was
Kisses
licking
and
her.
licks in my ears.
It was
tongue
great.
all over me. And
Your
so I
bum in
put
her
that up
mouth.
for the trolls and said, "This is for my trolls from Staff Sergeant Moo," or something
Yeah.
along those lines.
You know.
So yeah, I embrace it too. It's fun.
It's actually fun.
Some of it can
I
be.
have fun with these guys that they go after Trump, and I just keep playing those election results. You know, the ones where it shows all the guys from MSNBC and Young Turks imploding and, cussing. And,
Yep.
each time it rolls up that another state goes Trump's way. And I just write down under. I smile every time I watch this and that type of thing. So you can have a lot of fun with them, too. And most of them just go away. But I understand what you're saying. They do try to discredit you. They do.
It's part of their tactics.
It's part
right?
of their tactics.
Yeah,
And
so they have them.
how you handle it, it can either play into their tactics or just completely eviscerate them as well.
So
Yeah,
this
I just
whole
do. I totally eviscerate
this
them.
whole trip we've been pushing a happy-go-lucky barbecue environment on this
We're
trip.
showing freedom what it looks like on these ranches and farms. that have been
Yeah.
We're just so most of the time on my trip I've been lost. I've been on the wrong road. I've been making great time on the wrong road, going the wrong way. But I met
killing me.
Well, if I was headed toward prison, I think I would find the wrong road and the wrong way as well.
but
No,
we've
I'm gonna
had
definitely quote you on that. That was fantastic.
we've had a ball. We've got to see a million people that we never would have met, and we sit down with these people and we just have the best time just being us.
Right.
That's
awesome.
and that's the only way we could do this.
That's awesome. Well, that's how you got here.
I'm proud of him.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
very proud of him.
Yeah.
I was proud of him there at the refuge, and I'm just my heart's just swelling up with even more pride for him.
God, I hope they don't put that on
And the
peaceful.
Hammonds.
Either that or you're just hungry.
I've
You are
never been
peaceful.
never been peaceful in my life. I don't think. But the only guy with PTSD is at the refuge being peaceful. What the hell? You
You
know?
chose to do the right thing. What did you say earlier about you discern what's right from wrong, and that's your
You
confidence
always
in that
have to
law.
do the right
And
thing.
you knew when to be peaceful, and you know when not to be in self-defense. But you haven't. Lavoie was in the position of self-defense, and even he.
Chose to
If I was with
Yeah,
Lavoie,
he
I would have
chose not
shot
to
people.
Take his guns with him.
Simple as
He wanted
that.
to be
I'm.
peaceful.
I think Lavoie knew what was going to happen, and I think Lavoie was a very brave man.
He was a
And
very brave
I
man.
think that he kind of knew that he was probably going to be a martyr of some sort. I think that's
It's
what I
funny you
believe.
said that.
You know, the
We have
day
a story on
before
that.
he had a speech or a conference, and he pretty much said his goodbyes.
Right.
You know.
He did know.
Well, I
And-
think that he was, like I say, a very brave man because he knew what the consequences would be, but he was willing to stand up no matter what and even die for his beliefs.
Yes.
And I mean, that's conviction. And you got to admire a man like that. You know, I just because the fact is that he believed so much in what he was doing that he wouldn't back down from anything no matter what.
I have
so-
to address this comment. It has to be addressed right now. He's a good supporter, so don't take it wrong. Daryl Wayne says, I've been wondering when someone's going to kidnap Dwayne to save him from incarceration, LOL. Listen, Daryl, that's actually already been tried. Behind the scenes, we are aware of some people that wanted to do that. But Dwayne, I need you now to present your own statement, even though Daryl is kind of joking.
Now, it's not a joking matter when you have 20 of your friends saying, we're going to duct tape you and throw you in the back of a truck and haul you somewhere else. And I'm thinking, I'm not going to fucking Mexico, okay? I'm not going. You know, Gavin Son can keep Mexico. I'm an American, okay?
Yep.
And I'm going to go as proudly as I can to the gates of Lompoc. And I'm going to submit to this year of prison, proud, with dignity and honor intact. And all my sergeant major buddies that we were privates together with, they could wave to me when I get out. You know, that's okay.
Well, maybe we can
So
figure
your
out a way
answer
to
to
get
that,
you.
if someone wants to kidnap you, is nope.
I am not a peaceful person, and I'm not going to let anybody deter me from getting to Lompoc.
And what is the mission to Lompoc if they've forgotten? If you were to be kidnapped, they take you away from that, right? What is that mission?
My mission right now is to raise awareness for the Hammond situation. This is the only chance I have to make enough noise to maybe get their case overturned or heard or get a pardon for the Hammonds. That's all I care about on this journey. My prison time doesn't matter to me. I spent 2 years on DMZ, a year and a half or two in Iraq. I'm sure 1 year federal prison won't be jack.
There
So
you have it, folks. If I
there
were
we
you,
go.
I wouldn't kidnap him. He might shoot you. He was willing to kill me, so I would back off.
Well, and who knows? You might get an early release because
You never know.
You never know.
Ride, Dwayne, ride. They're saying.
I believe in being proud of who we are. I don't have to bow to anybody, and I will not submit to somebody lying. So if you Google my name, first thing that comes up is I cuss out a lying prosecutor. I'm pretty proud
Is
of
there
that.
any way that the audience out there can help you while you're in this? I mean, your family. Do you have like a GoFundMe account?
PayPal.
PayPal.
I don't
something?
know. They know.
You're on camera, Cindy.
It's paypal.me/Dwayne's Western Store.
And this was the PayPal I set up to sell my crosses.
So we can post this. Maybe post it online at Sovereign
It'll be on
Minds.
this,
Get it on this. Get it on some websites so people will come back to it.
So what I was doing during the trial, right, I built a forge because all I had was a weed burner, a sack of concrete, and some bricks on my truck. I built me a forge on the back of my truck
Now,
across
when we
from the
when we say
courthouse.
weed burner, we're not talking about burning weed, right? We're talking about
One of
It's not on
them
the back of the
propane
truck, you can see it.
weed burner.
Right, like
Right.
in the Forest Service where you
Yeah.
start but fire. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so-
Okay, I just want to make sure you weren't burning weed.
No, I've never
You're in
smoked.
California now.
But
I've
just
never-
you just crossed over into
No,
a
no.
sanctuary pot smoking state here. So
No.
you have to
A
understand.
sanctuary.
Now that I'm in a sanctuary state, if I was like a Mexican going to prison, I think I'd be all right. But American going to prison, how does that work?
Well, you'd already be number one, let go for good behavior, and you probably could have killed several people up there too, and they would have let you go, just like the Steinley guy. They just give him a weapons charge, and they got rid of the weapons charge. But yeah, it seems like, and I was just looking that Governor Brown is just removing the penalties on some more stuff. I mean, I'm watching it on myself while I'm speaking. But being a free white American male. I mean, you're a target. You got a big target on your back, so,
So I built a forge while I was waiting for my trial, and I kept giving homeless people crosses. And I'd twist all these old worn out horseshoes into these beautiful pieces of art, and then I'd give it to a homeless guy so he would watch my service truck so nothing would happen to it. I give them like one a day, and they would take it and sell it for like $100, $200. But I made all these beautiful crosses while I was waiting to go to court in Portland, and the homeless people in Portland took good care of me.
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Wow.
So now I just build all these crosses, and I sell some of them, and I give some of them away and stuff like that. But it's been a way of coping, I guess.
Right. And so you guys do have enough funds to get to prison?
Well, we started with $10. We started with $10 in the bank account, right? With enough gas to drive across town. We got a couple donations, and then somehow we got down here. I don't do anything with the finances. They do.
Not they. That's Cindy.
Cindy's
When
the
I raise my own
mastermind of all
PayPal on
that.
occasion.
The lead conspiracy lady is right
I
there.
ain't conspiring to do nothing besides get you
I'm
to
a
prison.
conspiracist. I'm definitely conspiring. You know what I'm conspiring? I'm conspiring along with the Constitution because that's the #1 conspiracy document I've ever read in my life. That's
This
two
is,
or more men
it's so
gathered
weird. It's
together
so weird
having
that
a
everybody's
plan.
trying to get you to prison. I'm still having a hard time.
With joy.
Wrapping my head around that.
It's
They're
weird.
trying to get you to prison. I'm thinking, no. I'm trying to get away from the prison.
It is weird. It's
Yeah.
weird to be
But the
here.
problem is, I was convicted in a federal court through manipulation to get to prison, and lies and prosecution, and they warped the system
Right.
to do whatever they want to anybody they want to.
So you're kind of wearing this sort of like a red badge of courage type thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't have any other choice,
Right.
My sheriff called me last night and said, "Hey, we heard somebody broke into your house. We're going to sleep in your driveway."
Wow.
I said, "Great."
So you got
So-
some support at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my sheriff that wrote me a letter to get out of jail
He's a good man.
from the judge.
I met him as a witness though, yeah.
I mean, these are good, honest. We have some of the best law enforcement in the country in Oregon State. And the Oregon State Police are 99.9% of the time fantastic.
Well, this is a travesty and a miscarriage of justice. There's no
Yeah.
question about it. So.
And if we the people want change, then make noise, people. That's my recommendation. We're not
Remember-
going to kidnap him, but we the people can gather around him and support and love unconditionally and make noise for him.
And we were all painted as hating police guys. And we were hating the government. That's not true at all. We were hating the corruption
Right.
in the government.
Right. I love the government, the constitutional, legal, lawful government.
Right.
It's all the other guys that I don't like. The guys that are manipulating it and the graft and the corruption, like you say. And then they turn that into you hate the government. Well, yeah, I hate criminals too.
Yep.
And that's the problem.
I hate the Clinton Foundation right off the bat. I really do.
Because
Because
that's
they...
a criminal foundation, not a government one.
Right.
Well, they
It's a
call
money laundering
they call
service too.
They call it the crime family for a reason. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Money
her,
laundering
you know, her
terrorists.
nickname is Killary. You know, that's
For a reason.
At least mine is Staff Sergeant Moo, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna go with the cow thing instead of Hillary.
well. I think you're going to see some new stuff with this executive order that Trump just did, and I think there's some stuff coming down the pipe. So
Yeah.
we'll wait and see.
Indictments.
I try to read everything like that comes out.
We're
and-
waiting patiently. We're hearing of the rumors too about the
Yeah,
indictments.
there's some good
QAnon
stuff.
is coming
Now,
out with stuff.
Roger-
I don't know yet. I'm like,
We'll see.
I don't know.
We'll
We'll
see.
see what
Roger
happens.
Stone has
Yeah.
made this aware to Trump himself about what's going on. And so God told me to ride my horse. He never told me how far to ride him. I wish he would have gave me a limited boundary, you know. But
Yeah, around the arena a couple
a
times.
couple times we're talking. My horse is begging for a day off, so he got to sit half a day in the trailer today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We rode Shasta area.
Oh, it was beautiful.
It was
So
absolutely
many-
beautiful. The people were all nice. There's this one woman that went to Harvard. She's like,
Oh yeah.
"You're
well,
a terrorist." But that was the only woman.
How'd you know she went to Harvard? What'd she say?
There's a little sticker on the back window.
Oh, okay. So
we
she didn't
probably
offer
better
the
wrap it up.
information.
No.
in her
We
window.
probably better wrap it up because we're running on
I'm
2
sorry.
hours, and so
But it was a great chance for me to tell my story. And I appreciate
I
it.
appreciate it. Well,
Yeah, this will be on the radio.
Sunday, I think we're probably going to have to nip and tuck it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got off track a couple times real
Yeah.
bad.
So
But-
there you have it. That's Robert's.
This
job.
one's
Yeah.
live,
No.
unedited, and raw. Go ahead, Pizza Tilly. Try and edit that.
Now, the gorilla news media, doesn't she look like a gorilla?
Well, there's the gorilla.
They were just making comments about her having to put on her gorilla suit earlier.
Well, did they? What do you guys think you're doing over here behind my back just because I'm on the side of the camera? I'm gonna get you
Well, you got
guys.
the gorilla today. Heard about Readout News, Sovereign
Right.
Mind Radio.
Sherry Duvall's great.
Jared Diwali.
Oh,
That's great.
when she came out with the Wooten document, that was her story.
Use my state representative, Washington
Yeah.
State Representative, Matt
That's right.
Shea.
Matt Shea.
Yeah, that's right.
And my lawyer was contacted to and from Matt Shea's office almost instantly.
Isn't that amazing, the communication now? Because we had that on live right as he was doing it in here, out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Never even heard of the guy, or but we've got everybody's has got instant communications now because
Yep.
we've networked to the point across the United States and the world through social media. That I mean, that's a pretty powerful tool.
Very
now.
powerful tool.
Yeah.
Mark, we've had a great time here. Before I wrap my live up, would you like to put any other plugs in for yourself? And just be shameless. Be shameless. We're all about that. We want to network and we want education.
Send the
We
army
want
of
our
money.
audience to go. Yes, send the
Everybody
audience
get
money.
happy. All I have to say is watch Sovereign Mind Radio or watch it. Listen. We're watching it now. But on Sundays on 10 to noon, and then you've got State of Jefferson, the Jefferson State of Mind, 9 to 10 in the morning Sundays on KCNR1460.com. You can go there to live chat room and listen in or get involved in the discussion or call in. And
Can you say that .com one more time slower?
KCNR1460.com, and you can go to Sovereign Mind, either in the archives or go to the live feed and get into the chat room. Sunday 9 to noon.
Awesome. Sally, anything?
All right, yeah, and there was State of Jefferson State of Mind Radio is the hour before his program, 9 to 10 a.m. at 1460.com. Oh, KCNR 1460.com.
Yeah.
Okay, and would you like to share where the audience could find your resource and information for what your interview is?
I'm just a home person.
Then you're a warrior.
Yeah.
You are a warrior then,
He's
out
a
here
warrior.
getting your own information. I
Yes.
take it.
Yes.
Can I
That's
ask
good.
you what your interest, what intrigued your interest to be here to see for yourself what Dwayne has
The
to say?
corruption in the government. And
The corruption.
how bad it really is. And people do not know yet. They still don't know how bad it is.
They still don't know.
Well, there's a
I
lot
can't
of
thank
people
you enough.
more.
You're my audience, my target audience, by the way. You and anybody else you're learning, you want to learn more, and you understand it's worse than. And then, of course, the other target audience, the main drive would be those that know nothing at all. Thank you for being here. That shows a lot of
Thank you for stopping. And I would like one more thing to say, and you guys need to follow this up. The time has come.
For 51.
The time has come for 51.